Welcome back to Drive for Justice. Month after month, in some cases week after week, Rafe Mair's malicious tirades against Kari Simpson were blasted across the airwaves and trumpeted from the pages of newspapers and internet blogs. Let me read some examples and show you how false they were. May 8th, 1997, Rafe said, quote, "I received a letter from her accusing me of being in favour of throwing young boys' bodies to the tender mercies of predatory males." And he repeated this accusation at least 6 times. The fact is that Kari's letter asked rhetorically, "I trust that upon your read of this that you will understand that the agenda far exceeds the fluff, but then again, maybe you believe 13-year-old boys enjoy giving their bodies to men in exchange for frivolity." That question was accompanied by a reprint of an article from Xtra West, alleging that the boys in the Maple Leaf Gardens scandal had willingly exchanged sexual favors for hockey tickets. Now, Rafe is a writer. He knows the difference between a rhetorical question and an accusation. But he chose to ignore that distinction and make a false accusation of his own. December 8th, 1997. Rafe stated that Kari's, quote, "motivation seemed to come from the Reverend Jerry Falwell and the moral majority," unquote. Well, the fact is that as Kari informed Rafe, although she had heard Falwell's name, she had never heard him speak nor read anything that he wrote. Yet Rafe continued to link Kari's name to Falwell's. December the 11th, 1997, Rafe said, quote, "I have no idea whether or not she is anti-Semitic. I don't think she is, though, and I've never said she is, and I have no reason to say that she is. But you know, there is an old saying which has resonance. You look like a crow, call like a crow, and nest with crows. Chances are you're a crow." He continues, "I have no doubt that if Jerry Falwell, an admitted gay basher and a demonstrable anti-Semite, were to come to this area, that the people who support Kari Simpson's stand on homosexuality would flock to hear him." Now, the facts. Kari is provably not an anti-Semite, but by alleging that Falwell is an anti-Semite and anti-gay, or was, and falsely linking Kari's name to his, Rafe uses guilt by association, an association that never existed, to vilify her reputation. At the very least, that's yellow journalism, and at worst, it's malicious defamation and promoting hatred and contempt. Now, defamation is either an actionable civil offense or a crime, or both, unless the legal brotherhood moves in to protect you. Kari told Rafe in the same letter that he misquotes as an accusation of pedophile sympathies, so we know that he read it. She said, "I am no moral Puritan, but I am informed. My involvement in this difficult issue results from a concern based in fact, not ignorance nor bigotry." Yet Rafe declared, "This is a religious war, not educational." February 8th, 1998, Rafe made reference to Kari Simpson's fundamentalists. Now, let's look at the facts. Well, first of all, what does Rafe mean by fundamentalist? Who knows? He simply uses the word as a pejorative. It actually refers to an intellectual defense of biblical Christianity that was mounted by a group of scholars at Princeton University before the First World War. No one has ever demonstrated any link between Kari Simpson and fundamentalism, But that didn't seem to matter to Rafe when an easy slur was close at hand. October 24th, 1999, Rafe wrote in an online blog, quote, "What the likes of Kari Simpson, whose mind is so narrow it's as invisible as electricity, want us to believe is that the words homosexual and pedophile are synonymous." Now, the fact is that this is simply an outright lie. Kari has never equated homosexuality and pedophilia. Never. And Rafe has never been able to produce any defense of this accusation. And he never will be able to, because it is untrue. October 25th, 1999, the very next day, Rafe Mair opened his program by saying, "I really hate to give Kari Simpson any more publicity, something she soaks up like a blotter, but she's become such a menace, I really think something must be said." And then, after listing a number of civil rights successes that Kari brought to Rafe's radio program, he said, "I listened to the tape of the parents' meeting where Kari harangues the crowd." Not spoke to, harangued. Notice how Rafe puts a spin on every sentence by the language that he chooses. And then he continued, "In my mind's eye, I could see Governor Wallace of Alabama standing on the steps of the schoolhouse shouting to the crowd that no Negroes would get into Alabama schools as long as he was governor." Well, assuredly, there is no need for me to point out the non sequitur and the fallacy of trying to hang George Wallace's racism on Kari Simpson. But for those who do not know her, let me assert that Kari, who grew up and went to school in a predominantly black neighborhood in California and earned her fellow students' respect, Kari does not have a racist bone in her body. Now, I've only cited 6 of more than 40 hate-inducing editorials that Rafe Mair broadcast or wrote about Kari Simpson. I'm sure that by now you get the degree of vicious intent. The important point is that those entrusted with the bully pulpit of the media have an ethical obligation not to abuse that power in a calculated campaign to manufacture a false reputation for anyone whose political influence they fear, and still less to pander to the economic powerhouse of the gay lobby. Repeatedly, Kari Simpson wrote him letters that proclaimed, "You're wrong, Rafe," and provided him and his employers with evidence. At one time, Rafe Mair's producer had scheduled a debate between Kari and Tim Stevenson, a homosexual council member who later became an NDP MLA. Stevenson objected. According to Rafe's producer, which was quoted in a court transcript, he said, "That would be like debating a white supremacist." And he refused to debate Kari, so Rafe canceled Kari, but allowed Stevenson to go on the air unopposed. It was uncharacteristic of Rafe Mair, the award-winning broadcaster, to cow to the dishonest whim of a politician. But he did. Yet Rafe and Kari certainly discussed the issue in detail. March 24th, 1997, Kari was a guest on the program when Rafe devoted entirely to the discussion of the promotion of pro-homosexual education in the public schools. Now, the NDP had just passed a resolution at its convention calling for, quote, "the necessary curricular changes to promote the education of issues surrounding lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgendered youth," unquote. That sentence is worth careful parsing. Notice that it does not call for comprehensive education of our children about homosexuality. That is, education that would not only argue for the human rights of GLBT persons, but would also inform students of the dire health and financial consequences of homosexual behavior. So, what was the outcome of all Kari's information and her corrections of misinformation? Come back to Drive for Justice next week.